Welcome back to the next installment of The Next Move presented by Quick Timeout and Coach Portal, the platform built by coaches for coaches, designed to simplify the job search process and provide coaches at all levels the job opportunities they deserve. Today, a topic that may not immediately come to mind when thinking about the next career move, but one that is obviously important, and that is building a strong foundation and a strong relationship with your head coach. One of the best coaching duos I know is the staff at Emmanuel College, led by Coach TJ Rosine and Associate Head Coach Graham Maxwell. They've won multiple championships, and since moving to NCAA D2, they've won a conference championship, maybe two, and made appearances in the national tournament. Not only are they great coaches, but they're great people. And today we're honored to have back on the show Coach Maxwell. Coach, thanks for coming back on.
Man, Coach, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to ask for the secret sauce right off the bat.
Oh,
What do you feel like are some of those foundational elements that you found to contribute to not just a healthy relationship between the two of you, but also a productive relationship?
I think it starts on both parties. So, like the head coach and the assistant coach, I think first off, it starts with the head coach. I think you get this question a lot. I think head coaches should probably lean into this too. But I think the question is like, are you a leader worth following? And if you're not, how do you become that leader worth following? Because I'll say this forever, TJ Rosine is a leader worth following. And it makes it a lot easier to follow somebody and work for somebody when they really care about you and, they are that leader worth following in every way, shape, or form. And you both just have to be able to lead yourselves. And a part of that, you have to understand each other as well, too. Like I know what I am good at, and TJ knows what he's good at. Can I like kind of fill in the cracks, I guess you can say, where TJ might not be great at or where he doesn't want to be great at, right? Because his time and attention and energy needs to go to other places. Like, can I fill in and step in there? And then also, I'm not great at everything. And so, can TJ also fill in the areas and weaknesses or just growth opportunities that I have that maybe he might need to step in and fill in those areas? And so, just being able to cover for each other and also enhance those areas that were not great, but also put us in positions and roles where, hey, Graham's really good at this, so let's get him to do more of this, or TJ's really good at this, so let's get him to focus in on that. But I think it all starts with that question, like, as the head coach, like, are you a leader worth following?
As you look back on your career, and then you've also had multiple guys come through, be on that staff, and then go out and do some really great things to proactively demonstrate your value and then also to build trust with that head coach.
Yes, and it starts with what exactly like providing clarity, I think, from a head coach. So much of this, I do believe, is on the head coach. Now, a lot of this is on the assistant, but obviously the head coach, it starts and stops with them. I really believe that. But the head coach has to provide like what a win looks like. And a win just means like clarity. Because so many times coaches will want, well, I want somebody that's really good, and they just kind of leave it open ended. Like, I want you to be good at anything, right? But as assistants, like, we need clarity. And if I have clarity, and if other assistants have clarity on what a win looks like or what their expectations are, then I think that goes a long way. And I feel like that should be understood, but I actually don't always believe it is, right? Like, that communication piece is so big, and just providing that clarity, and clarity is huge, but you have to provide that. What does a win look like? And a win meaning, hey, whether that's in scouting reports, whether that's in player development, as the head coach, like, it's your program. Now, can you give assistants leeway and freedom to be able to do some things inside of that? For sure. But if you have expectations as a coach, as a head coach, and how you want your program to be run, then I would say you give those expectations, you give those things to your assistants, and they'll be able to fill in those roles or those areas that would fit what you want best.
You just mentioned communication, and one of the things that is always interesting to me is that dynamic between the head coach and assistants in the moments when they may not necessarily agree with things. How have you handled that, and how have you seen others either handle that well or maybe not handle that so well?
Yeah, man, that's a really good one. No, so I've been an assistant here for TJ for 13 years, and I played for TJ. And so I would say the first 5 or 6 years, honestly, this is probably something I still work through or struggle with. Whenever you get TJ back on here, maybe he'll disagree with me on this, and that's okay. But I feel like that's something I still have to work through. But I am, so I played for him, and so as a player, I was one of these guys that always just thought like everything he said was like the gospel, right? Like this is the truth, and I had to work through that as an assistant because I never like gave pushback, even if maybe some of the ideas weren't the best ideas. Like looking back, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, yeah, incredible idea. And it didn't work out. I was like, oh, that's their fault. It's not your fault. So I had to work through that. But these conversations have to be behind like closed doors. And I know we hear that a lot, but it is so true. Like me and TJ won't always agree. We won't agree on recruiting. Right now we won't agree on our style of play all the time. But TJ didn't bring me on staff, and head coaches don't bring their assistants on staff to just be yes men or yes women or just to have someone they agree with. They need people to be able to poke holes in things, and we have to be a sounding board. And so the best thing to do is that you just speak with truth, love, and transparency. That's our expectation in our program of how to communicate. We speak to each other with truth, but there has to be love behind it as well. If I'm only giving truth and there's no love, then that's not a healthy relationship. I'm just trying to get my point across. And so behind closed doors, even when we disagree, like there has to be that transparency factor, but it's got to be done with love. Now, if I'm disagreeing with something TJ may say, then we come to an agreement. TJ is like, I really feel passionate about this. Then I trust him. I have to. He's not actively trying to lose games. I think sometimes people may disagree because they're like, well, they're trying. Like, I'm not sure who does that, right? Like, no one wants to lose games. And so I have to just think like, well, he's doing the best he can with the knowledge or information that he has. And that's how I have to approach it. And so outwardly in front of everyone, man, I got his back. I got to, we say this all the time in our program, it's not about you. And we say this joke all the time, but it's like, I got over myself a long time ago. If I'm still thinking so highly of myself in front of everyone, then I'm not a very good assistant. So it's okay to disagree behind closed doors, but it's got to be done with truth and love and that transparency. And then outwardly in front of everyone, like, no, we made this decision as a staff, not man, our coach does this. I don't agree. Like, you're going to have a broken culture if that's coming from the top.
This is an audio podcast, so people can't see it, but I think the outwardly is even something that you just did, which is the facial expressions and the body language.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes coaches don't necessarily think about it or what their face is communicating to the players out there on the court, but you can't have your head coach say something and then you roll your eyes or make an offhanded comment or even show it on your face or with your body that you don't agree with him. And that probably speaks, I think that speaks to like a bigger piece, which is just the loyalty component of it, that which you haven't mentioned yet. But if you're not loyal to your head coach, there's going to be a problem, like you said, not just for your immediate culture, but also for your future potential job opportunities. There's no head coach out there that's going to give you a great recommendation if you're not loyal. And this is just, I think, one of those like small ways that you can show that. So
no doubt. Yeah, I agree.
Talking a little bit more about straining the relationship potentially, but some other things that maybe can come to mind that people should avoid or assistants should avoid when it comes to either outright things that could strain the relationship or maybe even like misunderstandings.
I've thought about this for a while, and I actually have a list of things here that might help out, because I am actually very passionate about helping out other assistants. And like, hey, how can you like just be the best version of yourself? Because it's hard. There's not many things out there on that second seat over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that first seat over, like for assistants. It is hard at times to be a head coach, but also it's really hard to be an assistant. So I think to answer that question, there's like a couple things that should be like no brainers, but like how can things that could potentially strain the relationship. And a lot of it is like how you show up for even little things is like practice. But I'll give one quick example. My first year, I think it was my first or second year into coaching, my coach, TJ just gave an idea. It's like, man, we need our players to be more flexible. And he may have even been talking about our best players, guys like, an All-American at the NAIA level. And I was thinking like, okay, he wants him to be more flexible. So I did this YouTube research, of course. That was the only thing I knew what to do. And before practice, I'm stretching him out like 30 minutes before practice. Come to find out, like I hurt him, like he got hurt. And so we ended in, he did play the next game. Like we had a game the next day. It was the last game of the season, the biggest game of the year, but he was hurt. Like he couldn't play that much. And it was my fault. So I just thought I was trying to do the best I could. Like I was trying to run with something, but I didn't have the correct information. I didn't know actually how to go about it. And so that really hurt him and hurt our team. Now I think we ended up being fine and like winning a bunch of games after that, thankfully. Otherwise I wouldn't have a job still probably. But it is good to like take some information and then kind of run with it. But also you got to know your stuff. And if you don't know your stuff and you're just kind of throwing things at a wall, then that could be problematic. But I want to share a couple things here, really just for coaches and just kind of being surprised. These are things I've seen when I go to practices. These are and this isn't just college. This is every level. But just showing up for practice, like I think these are things to like avoid or do or avoid. And the first thing is like I think assistants should show up with a whistle. And that just kind of goes like being prepared. Like it seems like an easy one. Now, different programs, maybe assistants don't need that, but yeah, show up with a whistle, like be prepared to be ready to do whatever. A lot of times assistants, like their body language in practice, like you just alluded to, is like, I'm disinterested and I don't want to be here. Like players, they read all of those things. This might be like a simple one, but like have actual like shoes on, like ready to do things versus like slides or like, if you're like showing up and you're like more worried about being comfortable than like actually jumping in there and impacting, I think that could cause a rub as well. And this, I mean, maybe I see people do this as well too, but checking their phone or like on their phone, like in meetings or practices where it's like what I have going on is like more important. We already talked about this one, like backing the coach. Like if you don't back the coach, I think that's a big one, kind of like a no-no. Knowing what's going to go on. So like the practice plan, like what do we want to get out of today? Like knowing what that is and like being very sure of how can I carry out my job the best today, and like knowing the plan, how can I be successful? Another one is like showing up on time. I think this one probably rubs the head coaches wrong. Maybe, I don't know about the most, but it's up there. If like assistants are always like, they're always say, hey, I'm not going to be there on time, or I'm not going to. Now things come up, I get that, but like timeliness it shows everyone else how much you actually care. And then not like throwing everyone else under the bus. And so I see this happen all the time with coaches as well. Hey, you're kind of like, you're pegged in between two players. Like, yeah, so-and-so, they don't pass you the ball. It's all right. Go get yours. Like you're kind of undercutting the culture. And I think all of these things fit under the umbrella of like, as an assistant, I'll put it to this, like your job really is to be the culture keeper of your program. And those things take away from the culture and they don't add to the culture. And those are like some tangible things to do or not to do. But that at the end of the day, man, like our job is to be the culture keeper of our entire program.
Last time you were on here, you gave some other characteristics of an assistant coach. And if people didn't hear that, I'll link that down below so they can click on that and listen to that episode. That was a good one too. Beyond the on-court duties, how do you feel like an assistant can support their head coach, whether that's, recruiting, player development, team culture? What are maybe some practical things that assistants can do to be a help?
Yeah, I also think this depends on the level. Like, some levels recruiting might not be the thing. Obviously, for this level, recruiting is a big thing on how we can support the head coach. I always believe, like, as an assistant, you should be really good at player development. Now, really good doesn't mean you actually have to be really good. I just think you have to care about it. I like to think I'm a young guy. I don't really know, but maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But my first couple of years coaching, I didn't know what else to do. So I took pride in like being the best rebounder in the country, meaning I just, 30 minutes, 45 minutes before every practice, I just focused in on rebounding for our players. no, that was my way of like adding to the program. So you have to, all the head coaches' schemes and plays and defenses look better when your players are better. And so as an assistant, that's a great way to add value to your coaches. Just be really good at player development. And there's so many other things like taking paperwork off their plate or whatever all that looks like. As long as you just want your head coach. I learned this from a mentor of mine that I worked here, Derek Mason. He's at Hebron Christian now here in Georgia. But he told me, he's like, our job as assistants is to make sure our head coach can just focus on basketball. And so whatever that looks like, the role, I think that's a good one. But this one does get forgotten. And I'll name drop again here, but one of my really good friends, Jonathan Maddox, he's now the head coach at Morehead State. You know, he played at Emmanuel. We coached together. I learned so much from Maddox over the years, but I called him several years ago and I was like, hey, I want to be a better assistant. Like, what can I do? What are some things you think a really good assistant does? And he thought for a little bit and he said, I think people miss this one. He said, your job as an assistant is to help your head coach win games. And I think we get so like enamored with all these other things, but no, we're supposed to help them win basketball games. Does that mean more film? Does that mean coming up with something that we're not even looking at, like charting offensive rebounds or defensive deflection, whatever it is, like and bring that to them. I think that is a big one that gets forgotten, is we just do whatever we can to help them win basketball games.
As usual, awesome stuff. I'm going to put several links down in the description so those that are listening and watching, check that out. Coach, I appreciate you making some time for us today.
Appreciate it.